you can do the word problems on your own. Okay, first thing that you should do is, one, define your variable. So you're going to add the word number of muffins left here. Okay, read the problem. Try to put a pair of points together. Okay, you work at a muffin shop. Monday morning, your shop started with 100 muffins. Your morning customers buy 2 muffins each for the breakfast special. When you noticed that you only had 40 muffins remaining, you baked an additional 80 muffins. For the rest of the day, customers would only come in and buy 1 muffin. Okay, table of values. Think about your domain and range. What is your minimum possible input or your minimum possible domain? Don't yell it. How many customers is your minimum possibility? Who has? Yeah? 0. Okay, 0. If you, right, you have to try to put the points together based on the description given to you. If you have 0 customers, how many muffins are left? 100. Okay, good. Okay, try to write down enough points that you can describe the pattern. The next input is 1. What happens if you have 1 customer? 98. Okay, good. Guys, this is linear piecewise, which means all you need to write the equation of a line is 2 points, which you now have. Okay, I'm just going to write a next 96. Really want to establish my pattern here. Okay, I'm going to put a dot, dot, dot. Okay. When does it change? Read the description. 2 muffins each. When I have only 40 muffins remaining, you baked an additional 80. When does the change happen? When you have 30 customers and how many muffins? 40. So he quickly did the pattern in his head and was like, at 40 muffins, I had to sell 60 of them, which means I had 30 customers. Okay? And then I add 80. That means I've got, right, the next point, I have 120 muffins now. Now I'm going to repeat my input because in piecewise, when we change pieces, we typically repeat that edge point. Okay? I'm going to make this one closed and this one open because the 30th customer, right? I got 40 left. Then, right after, then I add 80 muffins. Right after that customer, I add the muffins. Okay? Write more points to describe the second half of what's happening. I mean, I can keep going. Okay. Domain and range. Mins and maxes. What could the possible max input be? What could the possible max or min output be? Think about it. Do you know any of the maxes or mins for the input or the output? You're selling muffins. I start with 100. I add 80 muffins. What's the minimum number of muffins you could have? 0. Okay, right? You got to figure out what your maxes and mins could possibly be. You could say none, right? There could be no minimum. There could be no maximum. It depends upon the situation. Okay? Can I figure out what number should go here? 150? Because I have to sell 120 muffins one at a time. Right? I could count this pattern all the way down. Okay. Write the equation. we'll graph, okay? But first we're going to write the equation. Here's the first equation. Here is the second. Notice that we actually wrote down more information than needed. You really only need 2 points per section to write the equation of a line. Okay. The first section. Now I'm choosing this because I see the y-intercept is 100 and my slope is -2. Okay. Second part. I don't know the y-intercept, so I'm just going to use a point. I prefer to use like whole round numbers if I have a choice. Okay, so I wrote my 2 linear equations. Pretty reasonable slopes to work with. But I have to actually write it as a piecewise. Notice it didn't say piecewise in the problem. It just said make a table of points that describes the situation, and you had to figure out that it changed, right? The slope changed. That means you have more than one line. I'm going to call mine muffins. Call it whatever you want. Muffins. So I used M. Okay, domain. Well, it appears as though I have it up here. My minimum, right, minimum is 0 and then 30 because that's where it's changing. Okay, 0 include. Next portion. Now, we do typically repeat that input number. Just one is closed, one is open. Now, that 150 might be a little bit tricky to find. Okay, it might be. So let's see if we can't make a graph, right? I've got a table of points. I've got my equation. You can scale your axes any way you want, okay? It looks as though I need to go all the way up to 100, 120 on the y's. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 91. Okay, so I'm going to count by tens. 20, 30, 40. You don't have to label every mark, guys. 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. 120. I'm going to count by tens. And it looks like I need to go at least 0 to 30 and maybe all the way up to 150. Maybe I'll count by tens on this axis also. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, okay, so counting by 10 would work. You don't have to count by the same units if it doesn't work for whatever size values you have. 20, 30. So I'm going to mark 30 because that's where something's happening. And then 50. 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 150. Okay, be careful with when you count slope. Make sure that it's actually a -2 slope based on the units on your graph. Okay, start at 100, -2 slope. Make sure your next point is actually at 30, 40. That's why you plot points. Make sure you actually are getting the endpoints of that segment. Now, right as that 30th customer is like paying and walking out, the next customer is coming up, but at the same time, I'm like adding 80 muffins. So it goes up to 80 right after that 30th customer takes their muffins with the -1 slope. Means if I go down 10, I go over 10. Down 10, over 10. This is where you plot a couple points to make sure you have them in the right place. So if I sell 20 more muffins, I'm down to 100. And that's just me checking to make sure that I put it in the right place. Maybe I didn't know where 150 is going to be, but watch as you draw this. Let's say I don't know where 150 is, but as I get here, I'm like, oh, I can count the axes. There's your last point. So we happen to have 2 line segments here. Okay, let's read our questions. How many muffins did you have remaining after the first 25 customers? Okay, X equals 25. Yep. Notice they're saying when X is 25, and so I want to evaluate. I want to know which point is included. Right, put a pink dot. 25. It's on the first piece. Okay, so minus. Notice how this is evaluating. This is the third question on your quiz. That's it. You just plug it in. $50. Include units. Muffins left. Okay. If you had 15 muffins left at the end of the day, so you didn't sell out, how many customers did you serve? Notice that this is 15 muffins left. That's given a Y value. What is X? Now I'm talking about the end of the day. There are 2 possibilities here. I don't know which Y value I'm referring to. Is it the first part? What if I never even made it past the morning? I don't know if this is true, okay? But I'm going to set it up both ways. Okay, what if I'm talking about after the 30th customer? So solve both of them, and then let's look at the results. $42.5. Besides, it doesn't make sense to have half a person. Okay. I'm still going to solve it. I'm going to solve the other one, and then I'm going to look at it to see if it makes sense. All right. First part. What's the domain that corresponds to the first equation? Zero to 30. Did your answer fall between 0 and 30? Means it does not work. This portion is only good for 0 to 30. Nothing else. Yeah.
Is there an easier way to check it without like having to plug it in?
Okay, so I did create an accurate graph, and you could just look at the graph and see where 15 muffins occurs. So yeah, you could do that, and we'll go back up and look at that in just a second. So the second answer is 135. Okay, notice that that comes from this portion here. 135 does correspond to that domain, which means that is an actual answer. So how many customers? 135 customers. Okay, so then Daniel was saying there's got to be an easier way. Yeah, there is, right? This is algebraically, but you did create this nice graph up here. What if you 10, 20, just look at 15. What if you just look at 15? You can see that it only crosses once right over there. Right? All the domain, everything's accurate on your graph. 15 muffins, and then I could look closer at that intersection right there only. Yeah.
What if you don't have a graph?
Then you'd have to do it algebraically and make sure that whatever x values you found correspond to the appropriate domain. Okay, turn your page. And you're going to do regular. Okay? This is a cell phone plan. Now, you guys are not used to buying minutes, so I will translate for you. Pretend minutes means data, okay? 30 gigs of free data, okay? I'm translating. This word problem is back from when you used to have to buy minutes on your phone. Now you have to buy data, okay? Back when phones only made phone calls. No streaming, no texting, none of that. Okay? So the regular phone plan costs you $25 a month. With that plan, you get 30 free gigs of data. Every additional gig costs 31 cents. Don't worry about the reasonableness of what cell phones actually cost. I don't want to change the numbers. Okay? All I want you to do is try to write down a set of points that describes the situation. Figure out where the piece is, right? There's possibly pieces. See if you can figure out where that border point is and how it's changing. Okay, here we go. First thing, minimum, maximum, outputs, inputs. You have to think about them when you choose your points. Well, I didn't tell you what X or Y is, so you have to decide. Who has a suggestion for what to call X? Yep. Okay, so number of gigs. Okay, sure. What is my title of the Y variable going to be? Sure. Cost. Okay. Now that I have my input and output, what's the minimum number of gigs that you could use in a month? 0.
Possible?
Yes. Maybe just don't turn your phone on. Okay? So, how much is that going to cost you? 25. Now, if you don't have to skip units by 1, you can skip to whatever makes sense. 30 gigs, right? Min and maxes per section are helpful. Endpoints, if I do 10, I'm still only going to cost 25. And 30 is still going to cost me 25. But the minute I go over 30 gigs, point 1, you're going to have to start paying for it. Okay, I like to repeat my endpoints, and I just make the other one open. Sometimes they're in the same place and sometimes they're not. The muffins were not in the same place. This one is. But if I do 31 gigs, 31 more cents. Okay, well that I don't want to add 31 cents. Can I write 31 as 31 over 100? Okay, because fractions are easier than decimals, believe it or not. Okay. What's another input value you might be able to do without a calculator? What if you did 100? No, what if I did? Okay, I'm going to put that number there. You think about it. How many gigs are you paying for? How many gigs are you paying for if you use 130? 100. You got 30 of them for free. So, okay. $25 plus $31. $25 plus 100 gigs I have to pay for. I'm just trying to make a point without a calculator, okay? Could you have done this? 32, 25, 62. Yeah, that's totally fine. Okay, these things don't even have to be in order. What if I do 33 gigs? 25.93, right? Because I add 31 cents per gig. Well, notice that at 33, you're only paying for 3 gigs. So at 130, I'm only paying for 100 gigs. 56. Okay. That's a really small slope. Notice that I didn't scale the axes here. I didn't scale them so that you can scale them as you need to. So let's write our equation. And then let's see if we can create a graph. There's my first piece. There's my second piece. This is why you review writing equations first. What's the slope of the first section? What's the slope of my second section? Find it. Yeah, I heard it. Slope is 0. Yeah, that's true. Slope is 0. Yeah, it's not changing. Slope is 0.31. I prefer fraction, so write that as a fraction. 31 over 100. Okay. Turn it into an equation. Y equals... All right, keep in mind we have a second question over here. Don't go too far over. Okay. Horizontal line, slope of 0. Right, just 25. Just 25. Ooh, domain. Okay, that's why you do your set of points. Where does this section start? Where does this section end? Oh, the second one. You're like, really? You want me to write an equation with all these decimals? Yes. Okay, but watch the format I'm going to leave it in. First, I'm just going to pick a point. There's a reason I picked that point there. First, the numbers are smaller and they don't have decimals. Maybe I could have picked this point. But you might not have figured that point out. I kind of helped you with that one. So I'm going to use this first one, 30/25. Slope. Okay. Y minus y1. Slope. X minus x1. Cool, leave it, done. Guys, word problems, don't oversimplify this. If I'm not going to give you a calculator to multiply out all these decimals, I don't really expect you to multiply out all these decimals. I don't. Just leave it. That's okay. Domain. Is there a maximum number of gigs? No. I mean, theoretically, like, you could maybe figure out what if you were streaming for like a month straight, maybe, but no, there is no maximum number of gigs. It's just more than 30. What's your graph gonna look like? Well, let's start by plotting the first point. Now, notice that these numbers don't go very high. They start at 25 and they don't, 56. Okay, so 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Okay. 25. This is why you write your slope as a fraction. I'm going to go up 31 and over 100. After 30. Isn't it the end point of my first section? 30. Does not have to be to scale, guys. I'm counting my x-axis by 30 because that's where the first reasonable point was. Now, look at that point, 30, 25. Okay, so up 31 over 100. You see that? That's why you put your slope 0.31 as 31 over 100. So I went up 31. I have a feeling I have to relabel my numbers here. What should I make this point? 25, 56. Let's call it 56. Just put the points on the graph. It does not need to be to scale. 130, 56. That's it. I don't need it. You don't need to put tick marks for every 10 units. Just put the points on the graph that are supposed to be there. If it makes you feel good, you want to put a break in the graph, go for it. It doesn't need to be perfect to scale. Okay, peace of mind. That's the second row. Read it. $10, no free data, 33 cents a gig. Okay. Start with a set of points. Create a graph. It might not be a piecewise if there's no change. If there's no point where it changes, it might not be piecewise. Sorry. I don't know why it keeps... There you go. Try that. All right, here we go. Let's look. This one, table of values. Okay, 0 gigs, $10. 1 gig, $10, 33 cents. 2 gigs, $10, 66 cents. I don't want to count by 33 cents. I'm going to jump up to 100 gigs. I'm trying to pick a number I can actually do. So why do I choose 100? Because my slope is 33 over 100, which means I'm going to get $10 plus 33, so $43. That's why you write slope as a fraction, not a decimal, because then you can pick numbers that simplify nicely. Oh, there's no change. This one's not piecewise. This is just an equation. Equals 0.3. Oh, okay, I'll do it because I started it, which is really 33 over 100x plus 10. Now I'm going to try to put these on roughly the same scale because they're next to each other. Okay. Oh, $10, so there's my 10. 30, 130. So I'm just going to go over here and mark about 100. 20, 30, 40. Okay. Okay.